All right, we're back. It's Thursday night, people. This is Real Law Alabama podcast. This is Joe Ingram from Ingram Law LLC in Birmingham, Alabama. My website is joeingramlaw.com. My phone number is 205-335-2640. We take cases from Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, and even the Dothan area if you have serious money. That's always our joke. We handle cases in criminal matters, state and federal, and we handle family law cases as well. So we've been on vacation for a few weeks, had a little R&R, little break, and we always are screening and booking our guests weeks out at a time. And we are continuing our summer conversations with people around the country that I find the most witty, intelligent, smart, legally career-driven minded people that I find have something that I think the listener would love to hear and share it with you. And I've never talked with our guest tonight. I have followed her for 2 months on LinkedIn, and every time I started seeing her post, it just got better every time. And I thought, you know what? Just bear with me, folks. We're in the South. We go to church. This is the Bible Belt. You go to church on Sunday, you hear the sermon, and it's like, yeah, I needed to hear that this week. For me, when I see Michelle's post, it's like, yeah, I needed to hear that today. Thank you. And I thought, I'm going to ask her. We ask lots of people. Some do it, some don't. But you can't get the interview if you don't ask. And so we asked, and she graciously agreed to give us about 30 minutes of her time tonight. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you tonight's guest on the podcast, Miss Michell Allen. Michelle, are you there?
I am.
Michelle, you are from Indiana.
Born and raised.
I am from Alabama. How is my accent for you already?
It just sounds a little bit like some of the individuals who live south of Indianapolis. So you might as well be in southern Indiana sometimes.
Okay. I don't know if that's good or bad.
It's fine to me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this tonight. I really, really have looked forward to this all week. This is the best hour of my week doing this. So tell my viewers just a brief synopsis about your background, if you would.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm happy to be here. And a little about me is I consider myself a creative, human centered attorney. I have a career journey that spans criminal defense, contract law, and leadership positions in government. Most significantly, I helped launch a brand new government agency in Indiana, which does not come around very often. And so, in that position, I spent a lot of time in business and legal operations and learned human resources. And I've really developed a passion for human resources over the last 3 years because it's constantly evolving to be better than it was before. I began my legal career as a public defender. So I was doing criminal defense work for 7 years, representing indigent clients in Indianapolis. And I learned a lot of valuable litigation skills there and in the power, I think, of intentional connection when working with challenging personalities and situations. And that is a trial by fire situation. I think we were, sitting second on bench trials up at the bench with the judges, maybe the first or second week on the job there. So they put you in pretty quickly to learn the skills that you need to be a lawyer, I think. So that was a really good experience for me in terms of starting out my legal career.
Um, yeah, criminal law is called trial by fire. Um, just for my listeners, I know this because you provided me your resume. Where did you go to law school, and how long have you been out?
I actually started law school at Valparaiso School of Law. That was my first year, and that school has since then closed. And I transferred to Robert H. McKinney, which is in Indianapolis, and finished out there in 2011.
Okay. And you worked as a criminal public defender, correct?
That is right.
Okay. So we have that in common. Um, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So let's first talk about um, running a huge organization. First, describe a little bit about starting that up. What's that like, and how many people do you manage in your position?
So the organization today has 70 people. When I started, we were created to combine existing positions into one agency. So the best way to explain it is there were state agencies, and a lot of states have this actually, where if you, a citizen, have a dispute with a government agency, let's say it's the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, and they take away your license, you might be upset about that and disagree. So you can appeal that to an administrative law judge. And that administrative law judge at that point decides, was the DMV right? Or are you, the citizen, correct? And what happens in a lot of states is that that judge is employed by the DMV, by the agency whose decision they're overseeing. And from the outside perspective, that feels a little bit icky as a citizen. As attorneys, when we see conflicts of interest, that also feels a little bit icky. And so many states were set up like that. There's a movement called a central panel movement. And that is what Indiana latched onto in 2019, where they said, we need a new agency to employ all of these judges under one roof and to really embrace impartiality and integrity and fairness in the decisions. And we want citizens to feel confident that when they go in front of a judge, that judge is not taking sides. And so that is what happened with Indiana. And we launched that agency in 2020. And so when we started, we just collected humans from different agencies and put them under one roof. And so that alone was challenging to help mend cultures together. And it's something that has taken years to shed old cultures and try to build a new one. And so that is still working its way through today. The other piece to that that was very challenging in launching a new agency is just basic operations. Getting to find a point where what is the best solution that we need, and we're merging 26 maybe different processes and trying to reduce that into one. And so we didn't always get it right. We still don't. I remember days when I started and we said, this is going to be the best plan. We're going to move forward. We launched on July 1, 2020, and you'd get a call and it's like, there's a fire, and you have to immediately take care of it and reassess and say, well, we didn't think about that. But now that we know it, how do we fit it into the process? And so at the beginning, it was just nonstop trial and error and doing the best we could. But we really hung on to what we needed. We made operations continue. We were able to get things done, and we were able to pivot quickly when mistakes came. And so from that experience and addressing problems quickly, I think we became resilient and we were able to really withstand the pressures of starting the agency and be successful.
So now that you've been doing this for about 4 years, do you enjoy being an administrator more, or would you rather do what I do? I'm a street lawyer. Do you miss being in the courtroom?
I miss small pieces of being in the courtroom, but I do not wanna go back there. So I am impressed to you to show up every day in court. My strength is more creative. I like to take ambiguous dreams and turn them into reality. I never set out to be an attorney. That was not any of my dreams until maybe the last year of college. And so I was always a dreamer, a builder, a creator. And that's what I was able to do really with this recent position. And I think why I find it so fun and enjoyable is because it's nothing new every day. And I get to build on a variety of skills that I have and use it in one place. So I I do not want to be a litigator. I don't want to be a judge.
Hmm. Um, when you talked about um, the administrative law judges, I do a lot of board work in Alabama. I represent people, doctors with the medical board, dentists with the dental board, chiropractors with the chiropractic board, all the licensing agencies in Alabama. I do a lot of administrative work. Okay. And one of the drawbacks for me is whoever the board entity is hires it's not like an ALJ, it's like the board attorney or the board officer that runs the hearing if there's a license issue. And so you feel like you're at a disadvantage because they're being paid by the medical board. They're being paid by the dental board. So they're automatically on their side, right?
That is what the appearance of bias would be for sure.
Yeah.
And that's the concern that happened here in Indiana. So, you know, that I remember maybe being it was less than a year in with this new agency and getting a call from a citizen saying, "I need to know who pays this judge. Where's the money coming from?" And it's a true concern. And what you're saying is the exact same thing, right? We want to feel confident that you have an impartial decision maker, and you're not currently seeing that in the way that's set up.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a I've got a hearing next week with the Nursing Home Administrative Board in Alabama. And then I have one at the end of August. I represent a physician with the Alabama Board of Medical Examiners. And neither one of those are very uh, impartial. Let's say it that way. But anyway, okay. So it sounds like you have found a really good spot for you and you're doing really well. And based on your creativity and your LinkedIn post, it's obvious you have found your niche. So let's draw back just a little bit based on some of the background data that I have for you to talk about tonight. Let's talk about one of your most noteworthy stories as a criminal lawyer, if you would.
Absolutely. The one that immediately comes to mind is the last jury trial I tried. I was a major felony attorney at that time, and a case had come in where there was an event that happened on New Year's Eve, and somebody was found deceased at a home with over 100 stab wounds in their body. So we had this case from the very beginning with a client. I ended up sitting second on this trial with someone else. And we worked the case, we worked the witnesses, and some of the evidence that came out in discovery and also came out at the trial was our client was with the decedent on that night. There were two witnesses that testified to say our client was there, one of which was the client's wife. And client lived nearby at a house, and so it was not unusual for our client to be over at the decedent's house. New Year's Eve happens, couple days go by, and our client uses the decedent's debit card at a nearby liquor store. Again, testimony that came out that was not unusual. And then I think after that was when the decedent's body was found in terms of the timing of events. Some other facts that came out were that, let's see, our client had a speck of the deceased blood found in the pants pockets or of the decedent's pants, yet those pants were at my client's house. And so, a little bit odd, but testimony came out to say my client would often borrow clothes from the decedent. The police interviewed my client. That was displayed at the trial, and there was some very high emotions of what I might characterize as anger during that call as well. And so we didn't have super great facts, but we also didn't have any facts that directly connected our client to any type of weapon or anybody witnessing the actual act or any further items at our client's house other than this pair of pants. And so we had always been preparing for trial. 2 weeks before the trial, we get a call from the prosecution that says the client's wife had just left the prosecution's office and she had just flipped on our client. And she had come out to say that her husband had confessed to her that he had committed this crime. It's one of those things where you're like, really? Oh my gosh, like we're just 2 weeks away. It's the worst possible witness that could have flipped. And we go to see our client and he is still adamant about going to trial. And we think, gosh, like we don't know how this is going to look when your own wife, comes up to testify. But we go to trial. We picked a smart jury. And I think that was a really essential key to this case. They questioned everything. They followed the jury instructions diligently. And we tried it for 2 days. And I remember we go to a bar across the street, as many lawyers do when they're waiting for the verdict. And we thought we'd just be there for one beer. And we ended up being there for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 beers. And everybody's like, why is the time, taking so long? We're curious. And that's always very good for the defense. So, I will say we like that. We like the longer verdicts. And we get the call back in and we go in and the jury came out and they acquitted my client of all counts. And it was one of those moments of just pure joy, a lot of fulfillment. We put a lot of effort into that case and the jury did great.
Let me ask you a couple of questions as a defense lawyer. So I didn't hear you say this. There was no murder weapon, right?
That's correct. They found an object that they believed might have been part of the stabbing. So it was like a very small puncture wound. So not necessarily a knife. But at one point, I think there might have been conversation of a statue that was traditionally found in the room. And I don't know if that statue, it must have had some type of pointy thing because there was speculation about, was this the object that we now can't find? But nobody could find it or any other object. And I think I can't remember if they talked about either like a screwdriver or some type of thing in a drawer, but nothing was produced.
Okay. So no weapon. They interviewed your client. Was that a video interview or was that an audio interview of your client?
It was audio video. So it was about an hour and a half long, if I recall, or more, and displayed that to the jury.
Okay. In its entirety, right?
Correct.
Okay. And did he come across as credible or did he not look credible in that interview?
I would say my perception of that is credible because it did not seem like he was hiding any emotion. the emotions were raw in terms of how it came across. And um, so I would say credible.
Okay. And just a couple other questions because I'm really curious. Um, you said the wife testified. Is that correct?
That is.
All right. So I think you know what I'm fixing to ask you. What about the spousal privilege um, under rules of evidence that he would be the holder of that privilege to keep her from getting on the stand? What about that?
I don't recall us digging into that too much.
Okay.
And, you know, part of that I think might have been a strategic move to just say, she earlier testified because we had depositions with her saying it didn't happen, right?
Hmm.
He hasn't done anything. He hasn't said anything to me. And then we had this new testimony. And so we were just relying, I think, still on our theme, which I did not say, was that there's just not enough. We're not meeting the burden, or the state's not meeting the burden in order to have enough evidence that really says our client did that. And we didn't feel that the state's evidence, even around the wife's testimony, was sufficient.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not trying to play gotcha. I'm just curious. That's all I'm doing. And I got one final question because I had two really bad um, cases that were stab cases in my life when I was at the DA's office. The first one was I was a law clerk, Michelle, and I will never forget seeing the pictures of the victim at the crime scene. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about,
I
right?
do.
This lady was stabbed 80 times on her bed. I can see those pictures today from 24 years ago. You can't get those pictures out of your mind, can you?
It is challenging for sure. And truly, I think if you're immersed in this type of work on a daily basis, it it is so much stronger. What I can say is that having exited criminal defense in 2017, so I'm looking at almost another 7 years out of defense work, that it's easier to not recall those images. But, when we talk about it, I can definitely see those. And those are things that we don't want anybody to see, whether that's in real life or that's a photo. And that's why I also have mad respect for all the public defenders, all the prosecutors as well, who work on these cases and stay in the game, because you have to be so resilient. You have to find a fortitude inside of yourself to show up each day and view these things and still fight for what's right. And it's challenging. So to all of those attorneys out there who are keep showing up, like, keep at it. I'm very impressed by them and by you, Joe.
Well, I love what I do. I really do. All right. So we talked a little bit about a serious criminal case you tried, very successful. Client was acquitted. So then you move on, and now you're a director of a big organization. Um, let's talk a little bit about, because you gave me some notes, and I found this very interesting because I have some of the same elements of this imposter syndrome. I deal with that every day. So, talk a little bit about that for you.
Sure. So, imposter syndrome is that idea that you're not deserving of what you have, or you feel like a fraud, and it manifests in different ways for different people. And that's a struggle, I think, especially in transitions and trying to figure out what is your role with your surroundings, what's your connection to them. and what's your role with yourself and your connection to yourself. And I think that's where the heart of imposter syndrome comes from. It is internal, it's in your mind. And so when I moved from, I started as general counsel with the state agency and then moved to the director position, I found it challenging because I was interacting in arenas I had not previously been. So before, I'm taking a lot of direction from a manager. Um, I'm not having a lot of high level leadership conversations. And so I had thoughts, that I have that brewed and got larger since I was little. And some of those are, I'm not tactful. I don't have tactful conversations. I'm not suave. I can't walk into the room and charm everybody. I'm not good enough, at a very basic level. That one showed up a lot. I always make mistakes. So there were so many of these negative thoughts that I didn't feel authentic in my leadership. And, it affects how you view yourself and your happiness. And so those thoughts, I think, come up with any little project, and they come up with any little or big thing that you're doing in life. So to me, that was probably a big challenge, yet one of the greatest obstacles I think I could overcome.
Hmm. So for me, and my listeners hear this every week. For me, Michelle, I've been doing this 24 years. I'm a little older than you, right? And it takes time to build street cred, and you know what I mean, as a defense lawyer in the game to start getting really retained cases. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to build that kind of reputation in a state. And now we're kind of there, and I get retained manslaughter cases, serious sex cases, uh, sex trafficking cases, things like that. And people pay really good money, especially doctors, when their livelihood is on the line. For me, when they stroke that check, Michelle, I always am amazed when they leave my office, and I think, why the hell would you write me that check? I mean, who the hell am I? I deal with that every week. I'm serious.
So what do you tell yourself then after you have that thought?
Well, one of my mentors told me one time, Joe, when somebody pays you that kind of money, they're not buying a damn lawyer. They're hoping to buy a result. And that puts a lot of pressure on you to really perform. And it really drives me to do my best work every day. Every day I want to be better than the day before. Okay. But I always am troubled when somebody writes me a significant amount of money and says, okay, I'm going to put my life in your hands and you're going to do the show. I just think, I go, who the hell am I? Why are you doing this? But I do it. I do it. Okay. I mean, most people don't know it. I'm scared as hell when I go in the courtroom. And then the adrenaline kicks in and your skills take over and you do your job, right?
Right. And I recall somebody telling me, when we go into these jury trials and you feel a little sick before them, always happens, right? When you stop feeling sick before them, then you're too jaded or you're not invested enough in doing your best. And so, to some extent, what you're talking about, there's a little bit of value in those feelings you have because it is inspiring you to take a little bit of a stretch and learn a little bit more. So, there's a little bit of positive to that, Joe, but maybe also turning up the volume on your expertise and knowing that you have worked hard to earn somebody's respect enough to come into your office and deliver you a check. So I think I think you're on to something there, and I think you could turn up a little bit of a different spin on it to embrace all of the good things you've done.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You're too kind. But anyway, let's get back to you. Okay. So now you're in a great position. You're really into growing as a person. And talk a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about your LinkedIn profile and your post and how you create those and how you come up with those. Because for me, Michelle, as I said at the beginning of this, sometimes it's like Sunday morning sermon for me. I'll read your message and I'll say, "Yeah, I needed to hear that today." I mean, really, you make my day. How do you come up with some of that? And how long does it take you to develop some of those before you put it out?
Sure. I'm very grateful that you've shared this story, and I'm glad that they can inspire you. And they take some effort, I will say. But what I have found is my undergrad was in professional writing, and I loved English. I loved English growing up in school all the time. Sorry about the noise. I've got a cat in the background. If you heard that part. But what I had not been doing a lot of is creative writing in my tenure as an attorney, as a contract writer, and even, working in this new role. And I'm at the top position right now in this agency. And what I found is, if I can't grow up in terms of career path where I am, I can expand. And what could I do to expand that would bring me joy? And what I've been able to do is revisit the fun that I had learning English and doing the creative writing, and I can channel that into these LinkedIn posts. I love vignettes. And so everyone to me is like a little mini story. And so I started by dipping my toes in a couple months ago. I think my first post might have been in like November, and I might post like once every month just to get that fear out of the way. And I really decided to commit more to that in 2024. And I've done a couple iterations. You think if I can do a pattern, maybe that makes it easier. So on Wednesdays, I do a quote. On Fridays, now I'm doing a question of sorts. And so that is one way to help in terms of inspiring the writing. But I think the other piece to writing different pieces on social media is figuring out what really resonates with you as a person. And I like to inspire, and I've always enjoyed that. I like to dream, I like to build things, as I've said earlier. And so that's usually what drives my post is what can I do to inspire somebody today? What's something I wish I would have known 2 years ago? So I recently took a writing course, and it's like a suggestion to say, what 2 years ago, where were you? And what advice would you have wanted? And always write to that person, because there's always somebody one step behind you. And so I think about those things when I'm writing in terms of what might resonate with somebody and make them feel good, what might make them take a little extra effort today to make themselves better or to have a better connection with somebody, and what might help me be a better person too. So, what am I currently studying that I'm finding value in that I can share with others?
So, I I'm sitting here looking at your LinkedIn post because I look forward to seeing them almost every week. And without giving away too much of your trade, okay, it's your trade, it's your secret, okay? I don't want to do that to you. How do you create some of this stuff? Is there some kind of app tool that you use to create this? I mean, I'm just curious.
I do. There's no secrets. And I forgot to answer that. You asked me that question. I use Canva, and I purchased
Canva?
Canva.
Okay.
Canva. I have the Canva Pro, And I've just set a file up that's got the size of my LinkedIn posts, and I start designing. And I see some things that other people do. I try some things out on my own, and I've just started to really progress and lean into that. And I've liked design, so that helped. So I took a can't remember what particular course it was in college, but we had to use Adobe um, Creative Suites. And we read this book, The Non-Designer's Guide to Design. And that really helped me in terms of just visualization and dividing things into thirds and really having a good frame for fonts and figuring out visually what would be most effective. So that is what I rely on heavily to create the visuals that I do.
Well, I love them, and for my listeners, um, you can check Michelle Allen out on LinkedIn. She has a newsletter, right, called Partnership Pulse. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you also have your LinkedIn profile um, under Michelle. Is it Kiesling, or did I say that correct?
You did, Michelle Kiesling Allen.
Yeah. And so if you get a chance, go check out her LinkedIn post, follow her. She will inspire you, Michelle. You are very creative. It's obvious that you have a degree in English, and you're a writer, and you're very, very talented. You really are.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you really are. It means the world to me when I see those every week, because you know what I'm talking about. There's so many people that get on LinkedIn and they complain about the opposing counsel, or they complain about this, or they complain about that. Yours are inspiring, and yours are to help people grow as a person. And I think that's what you're trying to achieve, right?
That's right. So I really drive my posts around intentional direction, connection, and growth. And what I have found is that you have to do that with yourself is the main place where you should start in terms of mindset work. And then you need to do that with the people you work with because you see them every day. And then you need to do that when you go home because it's really all connected. And so, what I write about, at least in my newsletter, and what I try to carry through a little bit on these posts, is this idea that you're building these skills at work. And we know you need to get better at conflict resolution or feedback. And then you go home, and a lot of times we forget that we're tired. We forget we're needing those same skills at home to be with our partner, to be with our friends, and to hang out. And I want to unite those two. And I want to say, if you just give a little intention here to learn this skill at work, and or give a little intention here to practice the same skill at home, you're going to be happier as a whole, because really you're just learning how to manage life and reality in a better way that helps you grow as a person. And so that's, I think, what, again, you're just with LinkedIn posts, you're just driving the theme. You're trying to drive the theme over and over again in new ways. So you're not always trying to reinvent the wheel. And I worked a lot, I think, on creating a lot of new things. And I'm still kind of there. But right now I'm trying to revisit the same ideas, but repackage them in a way that might still resonate with you, but in a way that you can see differently.
Um, well, this is this has really been a very good conversation for me to get to talk to you personally. Thank you. Um, so we're close to the end. You've been gracious with your time. I want to ask you just a couple questions, Michelle, just to peel back the curtain a little bit, just to find out a little bit more about Michelle as a person. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I always love these questions because you don't know what I'm about to ask.
That's right.
Okay. So the first question that I always ask, because I am a history major, political science nut. I read biographies, in the summer, 3 a week. Um, so for me, historically, who is the most famous person that is dead that you would either A, like to have dinner with, or interview?
I think that would be Amelia Earhart. I did a
Mm,
report on her in 4th grade, and I thought she was inspiring then to, fly around the world. And then when I grew up and you learn a little bit more about the challenges she faced as a female working in a more male inspired industry and really trying to get a plane and to get people to believe in her and people to help her out, she had to be a fascinating woman to be around. So I would love to have dinner with her.
okay. That brings me up to one question I want to ask you really quick, and this just caught me off guard. So bear with me. As a female, and I know you're younger than me. I'm not going to ask you your age. You're never supposed to ask a woman her age, but I know you're younger than me. Did you find the legal career challenging as a female, or did you not? Just out of just hypothetically speaking. So
I, on the whole, did not find it as challenging. And I was in some really good settings that were very inclusive and supportive of women. I had very good managers, I think, who were supportive of me throughout my career. I do see some of the effects though, and I have felt it myself at times when going to different arenas than when I'm in. So I think there is still maybe some of that mentality, not necessarily old boys club, but it can be a little bit challenging for a female to make way and balance home life or to prove her self-worth. I think females are still in a position a lot of times where we feel like we need to work a little bit harder than some male counterparts to earn a different type of respect or a different title. So I still think it's prevalent. I have not had to feel it too harshly.
okay, I wasn't trying to be too include too personal there. I just wanted to ask that real
It's a
quick.
great question. I mean, you're just talking about the world, and that's okay.
Okay. So I'm always curious. I work, you don't know this, I work 7 days a week, 12 to 18 hours a day. Are you a morning person or a night person?
I am a little bit of both, and I don't like that actually. I love mornings. I love mornings. I remember waking up and saying, "The sky is awake. I am awake." It's very much like the Frozen movie. If you haven't seen it, I know some of you out there have, so you'll probably be laughing. But I like that. But when in college, when I had to do work, I stayed up late and I would stay up writing, or if I started cleaning my room, I wouldn't stop until I was finished. And so now, working as a full time human during the day, and then also trying to do this personal fulfillment for myself on those after hours, those non work hours, I have found I cannot get up in the morning early to do it. I had to stay up late to do that work. And so that's why I would classify myself as both, because I love a good quiet cup of coffee in the morning, but I gotta burn the midnight oil to get some things done.
Okay. What is the greatest compliment that you can recall someone gave you?
That's tough.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I trying to think of a specific situation.
Do you want me to would you like for
I
me to
I
withdraw
can
the
give
question?
you roughly 2. So, I one, I'm actually very grateful that you shared tonight that my posts inspire you, because I've posted about this, like, a lot of people you might watch and people watch and they think they're doing a good job, but how often is it that we step out and we tell that person you're doing a great job? And so that feels really good to just get reminders every now and then because it fuels somebody's passion. So I don't know that I've had somebody recently say anything um, overly zealous about my posts, but you just giving me that open feedback has been helpful. And here's a fun fact I will say is that I used to be in a band is one of my like it's not a side hustle, but side fun things that I did because I was always pursuing something. And because of that, I got okay-ish singing at some karaoke songs. And so when I went to my last karaoke and sang a song, which is I think it was Wagon Wheel, and then the other one I always go to is Jackson,
Mhm.
that somebody was like, "Oh wow, you can sing," and so that felt very good.
Okay. Um, I think this tells a lot about a person, especially in the South. Are you a beer person or are you a wine liquor person?
I am a little bit of everything. I've not answered any of your questions with a definitive answer.
It's okay.
I I love red wine. I like this bottle called Cloudline. It's a Willamette Valley Pinot Noir. I love IPAs. I really like Bell's Two Hearted. I love Woodford Reserve. Drank a lot of that in law school, a lot of bourbon in law school. And my favorite drink to just, have a little fun, dance on tables would be cold Patron.
Mm, okay. Well, just so you know, it's Thursday night, Michelle. Um, this is my downtime of my work week. You don't know this, but I'll share this with you. The audience already knows this. I treat myself on Thursday night. I have a double shot of Glenlivet single malt scotch
Ooh,
during my podcast.
that is fantastic.
So you can't see me and you don't know that, but I've almost finished my scotch.
Is that
Okay?
why you turned your camera off?
Yeah, I did. Because I didn't want you to see me drink and you get mad at me.
I would never. I would never. I think it's well earned and well deserved.
Well, I love this hour. I really enjoy this. I learned so much more from you than you'll ever know, and I appreciate it. Okay, just a couple more questions. I'm gonna let you go because we're about 40 minutes in. I know you're tired. Um, where do you see yourself going next? Is this your life's work in what you're doing, or what's next, Michelle?
I think I'm looking to always be challenged. So wherever I go next, that's what I'd be seeking is a situation where I'm still stretching myself and learning new skills to grow and make something better. And I do have a lot of opportunity for that still here with this agency I'm in. But I know at some point that I will have contributed some of my best talents in the years that I'm here and that there are room from other leaders. I've never been a person that needs to just clutch onto something and hold on to it until I die type of thing. And I think there's a lot of value in changing leaderships to have some diverse leadership to get those new ideas that are fresh. So don't have a clear answer for you, but I think it'll just be something new where I can really feel like I have to stretch. And if you don't mind, I need to say I should have said earlier that the views tonight always have to have a legal disclaimer when you're a lawyer. The views tonight are my own. They are not my agency's, and that I very much work to keep, my government business, on my daytime job hours. And then all the social media posts, for the most part, that you see are done on my own time. So occasionally I'll post something like this week. I'm going to be able to speak at a continuing legal education seminar. And so that's work related. So I might post that. But for the most part, everything you're going to see on LinkedIn are my views.
Okay. I wasn't trying to get you in trouble.
No, we just always have to say that, right?
Okay.
You're supposed to say it at the beginning and I forgot.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, you're
Okay. All right. So this has been so entertaining, so much fun. I enjoy this every week. So before we close out, I'm going to give you 2 minutes for the last word. What do you want to share with our audience? What would you like for people in Alabama to know about you, your career? What do you want to share with us?
I would leave your audience, I think, with something to think about in terms of how are they going about their day? Are they going about your day where it's on repeat and it's on Groundhog Day and you wonder, where did the day go? Where did the week go? Are you only living for the weekend? And to pause and to ask yourself, is that what you really want? And if there's any part of you that thinks, no, I think I want something just a little bit more, then you can have that. It takes hard work. And that hard work, though, can be broken down into bite-sized pieces. So I challenge your listeners to think about, what do I want? What am I willing to struggle through to get that? And that might feel big, but then say, what can I do just 5 minutes a day that will bring me joy? And we'll find that next step. Because once you start doing something you love a little bit each day, it's going to compound. It's going to make a difference. It's going to change you, and it's going to change the people around you.
Very nicely put. Okay. So that was Michell Allen. She can be followed on LinkedIn, and she also has a newsletter called Partnership Pulse. Check it out, folks. So that was tonight's guest. This is Real Law Alabama, where we discuss law topics in Alabama and other topics as well when I feel the need arise. This is joeingramlaw.com. My phone number is 205-335-2640. We take cases from Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, and the Dothan area if you have serious money. If you know what I'm talking about, it's always worth a joke. So this wraps up this week. And as we always say, take care of yourself and each other and have a good night.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.